Coming up here today on the Raiders Report, I got a brand new Raiders draft rumor you got to see and why this could potentially be bad for Robert Spillane, Divine Diablo. And because of this draft rumor, we're going to look at some potential draft targets at the linebacker position. So according to Hondo Carpenter, and he was talking about Raiders scouting for the draft, he said, I'm hearing a lot of attention on a couple of linebackers. I think it's very interesting, and you can tell a lot about a team and where they're going to be, where they're putting their resources. So scouting, I'm hearing a lot of quarterbacks. I'm hearing specifically on a couple of linebackers, offensive linemen, a lot of different areas. But if I was to say the position I am hearing about the most at this point, it's quarterback, linebacker, and offensive lineman. So I talked about this a little bit yesterday on the show, and I said, hey, if a lot of people let me know in terms of taking a deeper dive, I'll go into a little bit more of a deeper dive in it. But, I'm not really surprised that we're looking at quarterbacks, offensive linemen, and linebackers. I will admit, if we're going to say what are the top three biggest needs for the Raiders are, and you're putting linebacker in the conversation of quarterback and offensive lineman, even my mother, who has not watched a single Raiders game this season, knows we need a QB and we need offensive line help. But I do think because the Raiders are putting a lot of their energy into the linebacker position, and their director of scouting department was also a former linebacker, maybe this is telling us something of the futures of Divine Diablo and Robert Spillane, who are both going to be free agents. So coming up here on the show, I'm going to tell you why it could be bad for Spillane and why it could be bad for Diablo in terms of them coming back here to the silver and black. But with the Raiders being 2-7, as Antonio Pierce said, what do we have to lose? When your head coach already knows that you're in that type of mind space, then that's where I'm going to go as well. If you're looking for more draft content, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because we're going to start looking at the draft so that way I can be happy again. So we're going to get into the latest here, and it's going to be first one, and we're going to get into the just win babies because I've had a few people asking me about it. The Raiders bringing back Divine Diablo. This one is 0 just win babies. Tuck rule, tuck that. I have said it multiple times that I do not see the silver and black bringing back the Raiders linebacker. He's going to be a free agent this offseason. And if the report from Hondo is true, and I believe Hondo and Vincent Bonsignor, and also Tashawn Reed are probably the ones that are the most tapped in terms of the beat reporters. When you get something from Vic Tafur, you always got to be just, take it with a grain of salt. But if the Raiders are heavily scouting linebackers for this year's class, and we know that Diablo is a good athlete. However, though, he is injury prone. And he has been way too inconsistent since the moment that he came from Virginia Tech, the moment that they try to convert him from a safety down to a linebacker. So I'm going to sit up here and say this. I do not see the Raiders bringing back Divine Diablo simply because I don't see why the hell you would do it, right? When you think about all the players that this team could potentially re-sign, think about all the players that this team could bring back. Divine Diablo ain't even in the top 5. He's a good athlete, and I wish the best for him. But the future for him, I would be shocked if he's back here with this football team. Let's go to the next one then, because if we're talking about Divine, we got to talk about the other linebacker that's going to be a free agent, and that's Robert Spillane. I'm going to give this one 2 just win babies, and I'm going to say it's a coin flip. If you called heads, he's staying. If you called tails, he's not going to be back. He's going to be a free agent. He's been playing the best football of his career since joining this team just a year ago. The 2 years that he's been here, he's been a lot better than I ever anticipated. He's been a lot better than I think the entire NFL world anticipated. He is a team captain. He wears the green dot for this defense. He is the quarterback on the defensive side of the football. But the Raiders also did draft Tommy Eichenberg in the 5th round out of Ohio State. And when you look at a skill set position, Eichenberg is way more close to Robert Spillane than he is somebody Divine Diablo. So if you're the Raiders, could you be like, well, we already have our Spillane replaced. Maybe we need to go out and add a linebacker that's an athlete like Divine Diablo. Because when you look at the other linebackers on this depth chart, there's not a lot to be inspired by, right? You got Gaynor, who I think is a good UDFA, but he's still just a UDFA. Amari Burney, hell of an athlete, but he's even worse than Divine Diablo. And Malga is really just a practice squad type of player. So this is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. And I know it looks a little bit different, but I want you to make sure that you answer it. What will the Raiders do? If you think that they're going to re-sign Divine Diablo this offseason, I want you to type 1. If you think that they're going to re-sign Robert Spillane, Type 2, if you think both players are going to be back on the team. Type 3, if you think that the Raiders are going to let both of them walk. Type 4, my answer after this YouTube ad break. I am going to say 2, and the reason why I'm going to say 2 is because of how important Robert Spillane is in that locker room. Right now, I think if you were to ask that entire team and coaching staff, which 2 players are the biggest leaders of that football team, everybody, including my mom, says Max Crosby. And then I bet you the next most popular answer is Robert Spillane. Earlier this offseason, when the Raiders met with some of these younger players in May, it was Crosby, it was Spillane, and then there was another guy who right now is miserable with the New York Jets. But to me, I do wonder if the Raiders could potentially use a 3-linebacker defense, because I have heard some things, and I'm going to get into a show next week around, I do think that Antonio Pierce is going to be back no matter what next season. And if you know that and you think that, well, then maybe the defense stays the same. But also maybe the defense switches up a little bit. Maybe Patrick Graham doesn't return. Maybe we have a defense with 3 linebackers out there, because right now the Raiders really only use 2 linebacker sets for the most of the time. But then when you also look at the other free agents that are going to be at the linebacker position for this football team, the unrestricted free agents, which is the free agents that most people think about, is Robert Spillane, Divine Diablo. The restricted free agent, Luke Masterson, he's out for the remainder of the year. He's not going to be back on this team. And then the exclusive rights free agent, Kenai Malga, I'll say this, he's got a shot. Essentially, if the Raiders offer him a vet minimum deal, he's not allowed to negotiate with other teams. He has to sign with the Raiders, and he just always seems to find his way on this team. So that means the current linebackers, I guess, that are under contract next year are Tommy Eichenberg, Amari Burney, and Amari Gaynor. And I think everybody goes, yeah, we need to go out and we need to add a linebacker. However, though, just because the Raiders want to do something, or just because that they're doing some scouting, doesn't always mean that they're going to end up drafting a linebacker. So the final one here is this. Will the Raiders draft a linebacker in the 2025 NFL Draft? I'm going to give you my answer, but first, I got to throw this one up to our sponsor, Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Make sure that you use code CLNS. Easy, exciting daily fantasy. It is the #1 place for daily fantasy sports. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Sign up today. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds to turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. So obviously, Chugs and I have been kind of looking at, do we want to look at Raiders, or do we want to look at something that I can't wait to watch this weekend? And I'll tell you this, I'm more excited to watch MMA than I am Raiders football, because at least I know somebody's going to win. I think even if the Raiders win on Sunday, I think a lot of us are going to go, that win doesn't really help us. If the Raiders lose, it's like, well, they lost yet again. So you know what? I'm going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to go more or less on these picks right here. And if you want to rock with Jeremy Chugs and I, then go ahead and do so. That link's available to every crazy mother effer watching the show right now. Down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. Huge, huge shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring the Raiders Report. So will the Raiders draft a linebacker in the 2025 NFL Draft? Yes, they will. This one's for Just Win Babies. Believe it, baby. The Raiders right now have, I want to say 10 picks in total, though, depending on comp picks. And this is where, like, if you go do let's say a mock draft simulator, you're going to find some that are going to give you 11. Most are going to give you 10. And that's because could the Raiders potentially get another, comp pick in there if one of our coaches ends up leaving. But the reason why I'm just so confident that the Raiders are going to take a linebacker is because if you're going to put linebacker as a priority with quarterback and offensive line, I don't care who you are, that says a lot about how important it is for this football team. Well, then when you also look at some of the good linebackers in this year's class, a lot of them are kind of in this, like, I'll say round 3, 4, 5, probably round 2 area as well. The Raiders aren't going to take a linebacker in round 1 simply because you're going to end up taking a quarterback there. But with Diablo and Robert Spillane both being free agents, even if you bring back one of them. And if you end up bringing back one, I think it's going to be Spillane way before that. I think it's Diablo, unless Spillane's looking for just some crazy outlandish type of money, which based on people that are close to Spillane that I talk to, he's not going to look for anything over $9 million per year. When you then put that into consideration on top of the fact that the only linebackers that we'll have on our roster are Eichenberg and then the Amaris, we need more linebacker depth. So coming up here, I'm going to look at some potential Raiders linebacker draft targets in 2025. This is not my list of the top 5 linebackers. This is Mel Kiper Jr.'s top 5 linebackers. And I'll kind of just break those players down in terms of what you can look for from these guys. Coming up here at number 5, it's Deontae Lawson from Alabama. And Alabama's always going to get good athletes. They're always going to get the top recruits, 6'2", 239 pounds. This season for the Crimson Tide, 73 tackles, 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 3 PBUs. And what I like to do is I like to just be able to give you guys sometimes what other people think of these prospects, because they've probably done more homework on a lot of these prospects than I have, because I don't really get into it until after the season. According to NFL Draft Buzz, a high-ceiling 3-down linebacker prospect with the versatility to fit multiple defensive schemes, displays the range and athleticism to excel in space, with the instincts and physicality to be a force between the tackles, flashes playmaking ability as a blitzer, and shows potential in zone coverage but needs refinement in man-to-man situations. Best fit is likely as a will in a 4-3 or an inside backer in a 3-4 scheme that emphasizes aggression and pursuit. He has the tools to develop into offensive signal caller with added experience and continued mental development. Special teams value provides a solid floor as he acclimates to the speed of the NFL game. Let's go to number 4 here on the list. It's Harold Perkins Jr., who unfortunately earlier this season tore his ACL and he's out for the season. I want to say that he got at least 4 or 5 games in underneath his belt. But when you look at the 6'1", 225-pound linebacker, if you talk to some draft scouts out there, there's some people that go, this kid's the best in the group. And there's going to be a lot of, I think, people switching up their opinions, switching up their ideas, and maybe he falls a little bit because of that ACL surgery. But when you look at what NFL Draft Buzz has to say about him, Harold Perkins Jr. is a dynamic playmaker with elite sideline-to-sideline range and an exceptional burst. His ability to excel in multiple roles, whether it is an edge rusher or off-ball linebacker, will make him a coveted prospect. However, Perkins does come with some concerns. He's undersized for a traditional linebacker role at the next level, which could impact his ability to shed blocks and take on bigger, stronger opponents. His aggressiveness, while a strength, can lead to him being out of position at times. To maximize his potential, Perkins will need to add bulk and refine his run-stopping abilities, as well as diversity in his pass rushing techniques. So when you hear all this stuff here, in which round should the Raiders be looking to draft a linebacker? I want to know what you guys have to say. You're about to get hit with another YouTube ad break. While that ad is playing, go down to the comments, let the ad play, helps out Chugs and I, and let me know your answer. I'm going to say you got to draft a linebacker after round 2. And the only reason why that I say that is because you got 2 third-round picks. If it was up to me, now obviously if we got a Brock Bowers situation where it's clearly the best players on the board and you can take somebody in round 2, go ahead and do it. Round 1, no way you're taking a linebacker unless you trade back up into the back end, but even that, I'm not going to do that for a linebacker. I'm going quarterback, I'm going offensive line, and then if you want to address one of those third-round picks, personally I'd say look at a wide receiver to try to replace Devontae, and then also you could also look at trying to go out and get another linebacker depending on who is available. But it's got to be after round 2. After that, we'll figure it out from there on out. Let's go to number 3 here. It's Barrett Carter from Clemson. And I actually watched a little bit of tape on him. I got a few friends that are some Clemson guys, so I've watched a little bit more Clemson football than I have in some years past. But at 6'1", 230 pounds, 43 tackles, 3 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and 4 PBUs. Another linebacker that some might say is a little bit undersized. However, though, I do know that a lot of the Raiders coaching staff and scouting department has been watching Carter for over a year because of how high they were on Jeremiah Trotter from the year before that, which is kind of why I've been watching a little bit more Clemson tape. But Carter's athletic traits and versatility give him a high ceiling. He profiles as a weak side linebacker in a 4-3 or an inside backer in a 3-4 scheme. His ability to play in space and attack downhill could make him a defensive chess piece. If Carter can bulk up without losing his explosiveness and improve his stack and shed ability, he has the potential to become an impact player, 3-down starter. with his first couple of seasons. I'm telling you this right now, this is a player to watch. If the Raiders end up hanging on to Patrick Graham, Barrett Carter is definitely a player to watch. For me personally, the linebacker that I think that I would be the most thrilled by for the Raiders to go out and get is Jihaad Campbell from Alabama. This guy is an unbelievable athlete. Like, there's some raw, there's some instincts, but if you believe, and you can say what you want about Antonio Pierce as the head coach, I do think that he's a good defensive coach, linebacker coach. I think we have another good linebacker coach in Mike Caldwell. Patrick Graham can do his thing. But I'm excited for more and more people because I know when we watch Alabama, I'm watching Jalen Miller because I want to watch quarterback position. On defense, though, sometimes you don't know exactly what to watch. I want y'all to start watching Jihaad Campbell because this guy flies all over the football field because he is a freakish athlete with rare physical tools. Campbell brings a prototype skill set to the modern linebacker position. His elite speed and explosiveness allow him to be a heat-seeking missile in pursuit and a matching nightmare in coverage. Campbell's ability to play in space, drop into coverage, and occasionally rush the passer makes him a defensive coordinator's dream in today's pass-happy NFL. I have sat up here for I don't know how many years, and I've said I wish the Raiders would go out and get Andrew Van Ginkel. I wish the Raiders would figure out a way to get Kyle Van Noy, because when you add a player that's that versatile to your defense, it really helps you out. And it doesn't surprise me that these players, everywhere that they go, make the defense better. Jihaad Campbell, to me personally, is the number one linebacker in this year's class. But let's go to Mel Kiper's number one. It's Jalon Walker from Georgia. And a lot of SEC talent. And Jalon Walker, I am curious to see if they try to pair him up with Brock Bowers because those two are very close friends. But at 6'2", 245, 40 tackles, 4.5 sacks, if the Raiders wanted to find a way where they're like, all right, we're going to lose Divine, Robert Spillane, and we lose Malcolm Kuntz, and we want to try to replace those three guys with one dude, Jalon Walker is somebody to keep in mind because he can get after the QB, but he can also do a lot of the things that you're looking for from a linebacker standpoint. Walker projects as a high upside linebacker prospect with the potential to develop into a three-down player at the next level. His rare combination of size, speed, and versatility will be highly coveted by NFL teams looking to bolster their linebacker group. Walker's ability to rush the passer from multiple positions adds significant value to his draft stock. With proper coaching and development, Walker has the tools to become a dynamic playmaker in the NFL. His high character and leadership qualities combined with his on-field potential make him an intriguing prospect who could outperform his draft position. If the Raiders decide to not bring back their green dot, to not bring back a captain in Robert Spillane, you need to be able to go out and find players that take on that leadership role, and Jalon Walker is absolutely one of those dudes. I hope that the Raiders figure out a way to bring back Spillane because of everything that he does for this football team on and off the field. And when you get a bunch of guys that, here's the thing, not many people match Max Crosby's energy, mindset, work ethic. Robert Spillane does. And he's one of the only dudes that might show up before and might leave after Max Crosby. So here's Mel Kiper's top 10 linebacker prospects. And as we get closer and closer to the 2025 NFL Draft, always remember that we will be live for the entire thing. Every pick, you're going to get the picks before you see them up on TV. And I'll start breaking down more of these players in a little bit more depth as the season continues to go on, as we figure out maybe some more of the needs, because if the Raiders re-sign one of these guys, well, then maybe it's not that big of a need. For those of you that do not know, I go live every single Thursday. Hopefully you tuned in. If you didn't, it's all good. But make sure you tune in on Sunday. Raiders-Dolphins early game. I know that they stink, but I promise you this, we're always going to party here.